Hello and welcome to show 20 of the MisesUK.org podcast, as sponsored by finlingo.com. Tonight I'm speaking with Claudio Grass, who's a Mises ambassador for the Mises Institute in Alabama, and he's also an independent precious metals advisor based in Canton Zug in Switzerland. We'll be speaking about Hayek's ideas on the denationalisation of money from his book first published in 1976. We'll also talk about the removal of the state from the production of money, because in this new age of cryptocurrencies, Hayek's ideas could be worth looking at again. Guten Abend, Claudio, mein Freund.
Guten Abend, Andy.
Und wie geht es dir?
Ausgezeichnet. Ich hoffe, dir geht es auch sehr gut.
Ja, es ist gut mir auch. Und es war ein schönes Tag hier heute in England mit die warme Sonne und die blauen Himmeln. Wie ist das Wetter in Canton Zug in die Schweiz heute Nachmittag und heute Abend?
Ja, also wenn England so schönes Wetter hat, dann haben wir es auch.
Fantastisch. Jetzt muss ich in Englisch sprechen oder ich werde sein geschossen. At dawn probably as well.
You're improved. Your German is fantastic. Much better.
Herzlichen Dank. Ja, es geht viel besser.
Okay.
Right, okay, let's get down to business, otherwise I will be shot. It's long been assumed by most people that one of the most basic, key and necessary functions of the state, like the roads, ever since King Croesus of Lydia 2,600 years ago, is that it should monopolise money production. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, of course, the ones who control the money supply, they control, the rest of the world, or the ones that control the money. So that has always been the aim, also in the past. And I think when we look at what happened, over the last few years, I still, especially because I think also of the internet, which I always considered as the Gutenberg press.
Yeah.
In terms of decentralization of information. I mean, we were used to government broadcasting companies. I always call it propaganda over the last decade since we invented radio stations and TV stations, and so it took a lot of capital basically to be able to broadcast news or information and so on. So that was always in the hand of the governments. And big media conglomerates, which in the US you have 6 companies controlling the whole media landscape, which is the same figure as over here in Switzerland. We also have 6 companies basically owning all the print and the TV stations and so on, including our government.
So getting back to money then, do you think that, in this country we used to have the BBC used to run all the radio and television stations at one point, and the government used to print all the money. Do you think governments should still run all of the money production?
No, of course not. I mean, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Like, I think Lord Acton said that. And that's basically true for everything. And we have a fully centralized system. Basically it started in 1913 with the Federal Reserve. So there we were able to see some trends, creating of the central banks as the lender of last resort. Basically, they are there to protect the financial system and the banks, but they're not there, to protect the purchasing power of the money. Mm-hmm. And that's why we have seen inflation and, a decrease of purchasing power and also asset bubbles and the redistribution of wealth, which is done by those centralized institutions. So, of course, we need free money, we need free banking. We should be in a position where the people can freely choose themselves what they want to accept as a medium of exchange and the store of value. And I think when I look into the crypto and the blockchain world, that's exactly going in that direction from a philosophical standpoint. I'm not a technology guy, but I always embraced crypto and blockchain. Also, I'm not invested in it because at the moment I still believe it's wild, wild west. It's at the beginning. But I always remember Krugman when he said back in 1999, I think, he said, we will see in 2005 that the internet had no bigger impact on the economy than the invention of the fax machine. And so it just shows, all those intellectuals somehow became a bit idiots.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's what Nassim Taleb said, the intellectual yet idiots. And I think that's one of the learnings we can take from the last few years. And it's visible that the trend is decentralization, and also crypto and blockchain will basically allow what Friedrich August Hayek meant with the denationalisation of money.
Now, Hayek, you mentioned crypto there. Hayek, he sort of died before the introduction of cryptocurrencies. In his book in 1976, he said he actually quite liked private paper monies because he thought that the competing market force-driven companies would limit their printing of the private paper monies, and he thought that maybe these would be based on baskets of real commodities. What do you think Hayek would have thought of Bitcoin et al.?
That's a good question. I think, from the philosophical approach, and that the crypto and the blockchain in combination with the internet. I mean, the internet is bringing the whole world together. It's opening up, the possibility that I, as a guy, a single individual in Zug, basically I can find business partners all over the world. I can communicate with them, and if you wouldn't have, so many trade restrictions and subventions and interventions and regulations and rules by the authority, which are there to basically not allow competition to increase, which are still there to protect, old financial or industrial conglomerates, which have been built up with the support of lobbyists and all that stuff. I think he would have embraced the whole development, because it's really peer to peer, which is possible, and that we can start, with blockchain and crypto in the future, that we really can trade. And that's going. I mean, it's there. Crypto and blockchain, I think it's also there to stay. And because it's so much oriented towards decentralization, it's going to make the centralized system obsolete. I mean, the central banks are going to lose power. The banking system, as we know it today, is going to lose power, and therefore, it's a great invention, and I think it's empowering the individual, and that's why I'm such a big fan.
But Hayek, he actually liked gold as well, because he said that it kind of goes in tune with market forces. So if gold becomes worth more, then more people mine more gold. So then gold becomes worth less because there's more of it. And so less gold is mined because it's more expensive now, and gold isn't worth so much. So the amount of gold fluctuates almost exactly in needs with the whole world's demand for money. But with Bitcoin, we've got this hard limit, apparently, of 21 million. But that could change in a day if more than 50% of Bitcoin holders agree. That maybe goes to 42 million or 121 million or whatever. It's also gone from, I think, about $18,000 down to about $8,000 in a couple of months. Is crypto not just too unstable for most normal people who are just buying their groceries?
Definitely. I mean, even when we look back into history, whenever you had new industries popping up, and in the old days, you had, we called it Zünfte, all the guys, they were organized within the cities, and they were dominating the local industry, and they were also forbid upcoming competition because they were controlling the old industries. And whenever a new industry occurred, and there were no regulations, you always had a spike, and at the same time also a bubble. And I think that's exactly the same now with Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies. Also when we look, money or let's say value is absolutely subjective.
Uh-huh.
And so, I personally believe that a cryptocurrency, that we're not going to replace money with cryptocurrencies.
Mm-hmm.
I think because what I see with the blockchain and everything is that we will start digitalize real asset, and we will be able to trade and sell and buy real asset through the blockchain. and so that we might be driven into hard assets again, and that the person in the age of internet, I mean, we can decide if you want to held some of our wealth in I don't know, in gold or silver or in cobalt or in another real asset instead, because the US dollar and the euro and the Swiss franc, I think all those national currencies in the future are going to disappear.
Yeah, because they can just print or electronically print unlimited amounts. And we are sort of coming back to Hayek's idea then, aren't we, of this basket of currencies underlying something like a private paper money. Now, coming back to the Swiss franc, you live in Switzerland and you have one of probably the least weak currencies in the world. I won't say strong because they're all going down. They're just some are going down faster than others. You've got a central bank as well, though. So how do you in Switzerland keep that central bank in check?
Well, we don't. I mean, the Swiss National Bank became really a hedge fund. I mean, we always stood, the Swiss National Bank always had a balance sheet of roughly 50 billion. Between, I mean, when you go back to 1990 up to 2006-5, it was always at around roughly 50 billion. And then in 2008, it went up to 100. And today we are standing at 630.
Whoa!
830. I haven't checked the figure yet. I mean, but it's 16 times more than in 2008.
Yeah.
And then a lot of stuff is basically invested in German government bonds.
Yeah.
So we have we've subventioned the Eurozone in a way. Then they also purchased stocks. I think we have one of the biggest Apple position is owned by the S&P.
Oh, that's just getting to be ridiculous, isn't it? Central banks buying Apple stocks.
Yeah, I mean, the central banks all over the world. I mean, it's if you're part of that system, you have to follow the rules. You cannot stay out, and so even our central bank. I mean, the Swiss franc is just a piece of paper. We sold, 50% of our gold has gone. So we still have, I think, roughly 1,080 tons of gold. But of course, we boosted the money supply tremendously, which led to a redistribution, which punished the saver, which punished all the people with a fixed salary or with a fixed retirement or pension. And on the other side, that money has been redistributed to of course, the export industry and also to the guys who are indebted. I mean, we just had, I give you an example. 2 days ago in the Swiss newspaper, there was a credit company saying, hey, we make an offer for a month. You can subscribe. You can have a credit up to 5,000 Swiss francs, and you will only pay back in 12 months 4,967 francs. So because we have negative interest rates in Switzerland, they were saying, yeah, we give it further. I mean, just imagine the stupidity, the craziness which that example gives. But that's exactly what's going on. If you are. Our system is right now, I mean, we are so heavily indebted. The whole world is, we spiked total credit since 2008, trillions. I think we stood at 140 and now we're standing at 230. So, I mean, it's just amazing how much liquidity created out of nothing has been pumped into the system and going into asset bubbles, like the stock market and the real estate market. And of course, governments are intervening and nationalizing more and more. This is really something which is happening everywhere. So the Swiss bank is not different when it comes to that.
I suppose though, just a little bit less weak than the rest, like the Deutsche Bank when it had the mark in Germany, it was still devaluing, but it just wasn't devaluing as much as everybody else. Now, okay, so me and you were agreed that a currency that's solid, based on something real, maybe like the British gold sovereign, which went from 1816 to 1914 as just, a quarter of an ounce of gold was £1, and that coincided with massive economic growth. So we like all that. But how are we going to go from where we are now with these state fiat currencies in a realistic way to an era of totally denationalized money? Yeah,
I mean, that's, it's always hard to see the future. I mean, I just my thoughts are that blockchain and crypto, you cannot stop it. I mean, governments still, they can start trying to regulate them. They can, cut the interface between the banking system and the crypto exchanges and so on. So trying to reduce the access of market participants. But still, then people still can trade, but they have to see each other and they can switch it. I think this is not going to, it's not going to stop. And on the other side, of course, hey, we have, the whole world consumed so much in advance based on credit. We have to pay the bill one fine day. And I think that day is coming in the future. We don't know yet exactly when it will be. But in the meantime, it's really the fight between, we can see that this, that the world is trying, it's disintegration in the Eurozone. There is a disintegration in the United States, disintegration, all over the world. So we'll see more unrest, and we see that the divide and conquer strategy by our own countries. And because they realize, everything wants to separate, and they tried, of course, politicians, they try to keep it together because, more decentralization means less power for them. And so it's, I don't know. In the past, whenever we were at the point like this, we know what the past basically brought. There was always war and civil war and unrest on a very large scale. So I don't know what the future, how it will end. But in the mid and long term, I'm basically positive that we're going to end up, when the actual system is going down, that we're going to end up in a system which is in favor of more freedom and individual liberty because of technology, which can also free us and not only control us. There are always two sides of a coin.
So do you think then that it will take a big, gigantic crash of fiat money, and then there'll be like a singularity point where we'll flip into real private money again?
The crash, there will be a big crash. I think there is. I have no doubt about that. I think the trends are visible, and even when we look at history, that was always the outcome. You cannot just, it's impossible to consume and not to pay it back. And I think that's where we are. The debts are so huge, and the financial markets is completely separated from the real economy. That's why we also don't see the real economy going up. It's we have, unemployment is still high. We still have a generation of young people which basically don't find a job, don't see a future, and that's already ongoing, for the last 10, 12 years. So. These are also some similarities between, the First and the Second World War, where you basically had, one republic and also high unemployment and de-illusioned youse. And I hope that we can really use these days to spread the better ideas and, to talk about how an economy is working, that it's impossible that the economy can be centrally planned. That these elites, the intellectuals we have, that they somehow have a very weird way how to look at themselves. Because just imagine if you believe as an individual that what's better for hundreds, thousands or millions of people. That you tell them, listen, you have to eat, you're allowed to eat this and to drink that and to smoke that. And now with this political correctness, they even want to tell us what we are able or what we are allowed to think. I think they're all sociopaths.
Yes, it's getting pretty bad in this country. We just had Speaker's Corner in London shut down the other day. A speaker's unable to speak, and we've got controls on drinks and caffeine and sugar levels and so on. It is becoming absolutely ridiculous. Now, just before we wrap up, given that we've got these potential collapses of fiat currencies and so on, what do you think our listeners can best do to protect themselves from these financial effects if and when they do come?
Of course, I might, people might say that I'm biased because my name is Claudio Grass, and I'm, one of the guys promoting physical gold and silver for quite a while already. But I truly believe, when you look at the world, and when you know at least something about history, and not just the history about the last few weeks and months, I think it's definitely makes sense. You need to own physical gold and physical silver. It should not be an ETF or not a banking product. You should own it and store it where you live, also not in the banking system. And so make sure that you have always, a few coins as liquidity, because, gold and silver are money. I mean, JP Morgan already said that, anything else is credit. And I truly believe that gold will be the king again, together with silver in this transition period. And if you have more money, then make sure that you save it, store gold in safe jurisdictions where the power of the politicians is limited. I think that's another key. And there are only, for me, there are only two countries left for the time being. One is Switzerland, the other one is Liechtenstein, because there the power is limited. In Switzerland because of direct democracy and also the culture. The cultural heritage of the Swiss. I mean, they love private property. They were never in favor of a king or in favor of a president. So that gives a certain stability. And in Liechtenstein, it's definitely the royal family. And the guy, Hans Adam, he is a classic liberal. He is in favor of gold, but he has a veto power. I mean, so it's a different structure. But I think that's something people would really have to consider. And then on the other side, I mean, you will always find. I mean, I just had a meeting with a few guys. They are basically. They made me understand that you can also own stocks, not as an investor but as an owner. That you can. They investing, for example, in family-owned businesses. Where the majority of the stocks are held by one or two big companies which are not financially leveraged, which are somehow separated from the financial system, and where you really have entrepreneurs heading those companies for maybe in the second, third, fourth generation, and really adding real value with goods and in the real world. So I think stocks, but then you really have to select them in a good way. And then the third is crypto. I mean, have an open mind. Look what's going on. Look into the crypto valley here in Zug in Switzerland. And I mean, as I said, I don't have money to speculate. I have a family to feed. I just become independent. So for me, still the crypto is it's a bubble. I don't know. It can go. Bitcoin can go to 100,000 or 1 million. I don't know. I mean, but it can also go down to zero. And I think the winners or the key players in 3 or 4 or 5 years. I mean, they're most likely not born yet. But I think the whole development is extremely interesting, and it's opening up a completely new industrial sector, which will also allow a lot of good people and nice jobs on a global scale. And just follow it. And if you want to speculate, of course, then you can always invest there as well. I mean, that's up to the individual.
Right. Okay. Now, you just mentioned there that you've become independent. Can you just quickly tell our listeners where they can get hold of you if they're interested in your gold consultancy services?
Absolutely. I mean, they can go on www.claudiograss.ch. They can always shoot me a mail. My email is there. My telephone number is there. And if they have a question, then I'm always happy to support them. And I built up a good network with solid partners, which I basically picked myself, which can offer, whatever the client is looking for, from the retail client up to the high net worth individual or even to an institutional client.
Right, that's business out the way. Now on to drinks. I've got a very, very cheeky Glenfiddich here. So what have you got there? I'm going to celebrate the oncoming... Oh, I can't get the top off. I've got to get the top off. It's stuck. Oh, come on. Oh, I hate this with Glenfiddich sometimes. You can't get the top off. There we go. Hey. So, and what have you got there?
I have a glass of red wine.
Oh, that's a bit girly. You said to me we should get some whiskey. You said to me we should get some whiskey, so I've got some whiskey.
Next
time
I take whiskey.
Herzlichen Dank für deine Zeit, Claudio, heute Abend und Prost.
Hey, Prost, and thank you very much. Always good talking to you. Cheers.
We hope you enjoyed tonight's programme. I'm going to be taking a break for a while as I'll be going on a series of business trips around Asia, the Middle East and Europe in the next few weeks, but we'll definitely be back after the middle of April with some more great guests from the world of Austrian economics. We may also try to squeeze in a couple of extra shows in this little period. We'll let you know about those on the blog or on the Facebook feed. In the meantime, please enjoy your property and freedom responsibly.